tonight. We start the show with Congressman Herb Conaway, Democrat of New Jersey. Congressman, let's start with the Election Assistance Commission. The two Democrat commissioners fired this week. The Republican was allowed to resign. It's one of the administration's first personnel moves since the Supreme Court decision giving Trump more power to fire members of independent federal agencies. He's also let the bipartisan housing bill become law overnight without his signature as he throws a temper tantrum over the SAVE Act, his voter ID bill that is DOA in the Senate. It seems that despite everything going on right now, the president is focused heavily on the election process with the midterms just months away. Why is that?
Well, he's been focused on the elections process and undermining the integrity of our elections by his own word, by the way. Our elections are the best run elections in the world. The president says otherwise because he lost the election in 2020. He still says he's won the presidency 3 times at home and abroad. And so he's been mounting this relentless attack, part of it led by the SAVE Act, which would disenfranchise many voters. If you now have to go out and get a $165 passport and you happen not to have that change in your pocket, those dollars in your pocket, then you can effectively be disenfranchised from voting. If you don't travel, if your name is changed because you've been married, or you have other financial issues, you could be prevented from exercising your precious right to vote. A driver's license no longer counts. He's been trying to get that passed, is dead on arrival, and he held up an important housing bill in order to try to force the Senate to pass on his Save America Act. It will do nothing but make America less free.
Now, at the same time, Congressman, the administration seems to be ramping up attacks on journalists who report on its actions. The Trump DOJ has subpoenaed several New York Times journalists seeking their testimony before a federal grand jury on Wednesday over their reporting on security concerns about the president's new gifted Air Force One. It's an extraordinary escalation, and it comes as the FBI Director Kash Patel has been attacking several reporters here at MS Now over exclusive reporting about a meeting he had at the White House that diverted him from a planned trip to Chicago where his girlfriend is appearing at a concert. Now, Patel has said the trip was for an office visit, and the administration has denied Patel was summoned due to frustration with his work. What do you make of this administration upping the ante on targeting journalists for stories they appear to find embarrassing?
Well, it's right out of the authoritarian's playbook. I mean, one of the things that we recognize in this country is that the press, a free press, is an important tool to help Americans hold their government accountable. We can hold myself, others in the government accountable if we know what's going on, and we rely on the press to delve into very important issues and let the people know what's going on inside of their government. That's best for a thriving small L liberal democracy, and they're trying to stop that. And if you look at countries across the world, one of the first places that a dictator chooses to attack is the free press, because they want to operate in secret. They want to operate to hand out dollars to their cronies, to erode civil liberties before the courts, and all of this is made easier if no one can see what they're doing, and that's why we're seeing these attacks on the press from the administration.
It appeared that we're back at war in Iran with Iran again, and you're an Air Force veteran and a member of Armed Services Committee. The president said this week that he'd left instructions for our military to, quote, decimate and destroy Iran if he is assassinated. The Wall Street Journal reports Israeli intelligence officials have warned the president about alleged Iranian plots against him. Never mind that Trump's war has dragged on and he's been able to sidestep restrictions of a war powers resolution by constantly declaring it to be over, only for aggression and threats to resume. Now he's threatening to tether the U.S. to unilateral war from beyond the grave. Is that even possible?
Well, I don't know about that, but what I do know is that our leadership in the military, from the top to the bottom, understands what the law is, and they have a code of conduct that prevents that kind of action. Just because you wear a uniform doesn't mean you're allowed to break the law. And so I'm confident that if there are illegal orders that have been issued by the president, that the troops, the people who run, who are military officers, will follow the law as they understand it to be, and as quite frankly is clear. Our military leaders are trained on this. Unfortunately, we're in a war that is in contradistinction of what the president said when he ran for election to office. We're now sort of on the verge of yet another forever war, as he describes it. We are now mired in this conflict in the Middle East. It's driving costs up for Americans. It's causing dislocation in economies across the world. And here, there seems to be no end in sight. And the president, as you've pointed out, keeps saying that the negotiations are over, we're going to get a deal. The deal maker in chief has thus far been unable to strike a deal with the Iranians. It took the Obama administration 2 years to develop a framework to prevent the proliferation of nuclear weapons by Iranians. That deal was working. We always had the option to go in with military strikes and sanctions if they violated the deal. But here we are in a war of choice. And the president and his administration has not been able to find a way out. If you'd asked the American people about this and asked the Congress about this, we might have been able to avoid this hundreds of billions of dollars of cost and lives lost in this quagmire.
Let me raise this. Tomorrow on this show, I'll be talking with Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, who's demanding a health update from Senator Mitch McConnell after 3 weeks of silence following his hospitalization last month. I bring this up because in your state of New Jersey, Republican Congressman Tom Kean just returned to Congress after a 4-month absence that he says was due to treatment for depression. The issue is more than just the absences, it's the lack of transparency. Why don't these Republicans feel they need to level with the voters about whether they are healthy enough to serve?
Well, look, I don't know if it is something that is in the purview of Republicans only. You know, health concerns are always a problem. It's difficult to come forward with them. People, after all, have a right to privacy. They have a right to consult their physicians privately and not have that out in the public. We would hope that this tension between the right to privacy and one's public duty can be better struck. But in the case of Mr. McConnell, who's now been absent from the Senate for, I think, 3 weeks or more, and there has been precious little information coming forward by his staff about, his condition and when he might return to duty. I think the American people are getting to the point where they have a right to know just when and if Mr. McConnell will be able to return to service. In Tom's case, and I know Tom, I met him on the floor on the day that he returned, hugged him. I like him personally, but a 4 months absence, and I wish that he had been more forthcoming about his condition to let people know that he had a condition that was going to be that he could get beyond. And of course, I think he was probably monitoring what was going on, but I think people needed to know why he was going to be absent so long. And people are concerned about the kind of representation that they will get when someone is absent for long periods of time from their duties in the Congress.
Especially in these very volatile times. Thank you, Congressman Herb Conaway. Turning now to Maine, where